Coming up on Network Africa. Burkina Faso coup leaders urge to release president as hundreds take to the streets to celebrate. Malawi president fires cabinet amid corruption concerns. Plus, Cameroon president orders investigation into stadium stampede that killed 8 people. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Tenyola Mawali. We're following the situation in Burkina Faso, where hundreds of people have taken to the streets to celebrate the coup that led to the overthrow of President Roch Kabore. It comes as international pressure mounts on coup leaders to release the deposed president, following claims by his party that he had survived an assassination attempt. The military has not given details about Mr. Kabore, but earlier a presenter on state TV read out a letter said to be written by the president to announce his resignation. The military says it had seized power because of the government's failure to defeat militant Islamists who have caused havoc in the region since 2015.
Communiqué numéro 1.
After much denial and in the face of uncertainty, Burkina Faso's army on Monday evening confirmed they had removed President Roch Kabore from office, citing his inability to unite the nation. That announcement on state television also said the Roch Kabore's government had been dissolved, the constitution suspended, and the West African country's borders closed. It was made in the name of a previously unheard-of entity, the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, and was said to have been signed by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandago Demiba.
People of Burkina Faso, given the continued degradation of the security situation that is threatening the very foundation of our nation, the manifest incapacity of the government of Roch Kabore to unify Burkinabe to effectively tackle the situation, and given the exasperation of the different sections of the nation, the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration has decided to take its responsibilities before history, the national and international community. This movement, which includes all sections of the army and security, has decided to end the post of President Kabore this January 24th, 2022.
As this announcement filled the air, celebrations erupted in the capital, Ouagadougou. As the sun set on Ouagadougou's place de la Nation, Resident Mahamadou Drago claimed that most people support the military and said we're relieved that Kabore was no longer president.
Today, we have a feeling of joy. We are so relieved because President Roch Kabore is no longer president of Burkina Faso. The power is with the military. We are happy. Most of the people support the military. We are really encouraged. We are mobilized to support the military in peace.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the African Union and West African Bloc ECOWAS and the EU have all condemned the move by the military and urged it to ensure Kabore's safety.
The Secretary General strongly condemns any attempted takeover of government by the force of arms. He calls on the coup leaders to lay down their arms and to ensure the protection of the physical integrity of the president and of the institutions of Burkina Faso. The Secretary General calls on all actors to exercise restraint and opt for dialogue.
In the meantime, Kabore's whereabouts are unknown, with conflicting accounts of his situation. He has been detained by the military, with the party saying that he had survived an assassination attempt. Landlocked Burkina Faso, one of West Africa's poorest, despite being a gold producer, has experienced numerous coups since independence from France in 1960.
In 2021, of the 5 military takeovers that occurred around the world, 4 were in Africa. Now, 2022 has barely kicked off, and we've seen another one in Burkina Faso. Overall, Africa has experienced more coups than any other continent since its countries gained independence.
In Mali, a group of Malian colonels first seized power in August 2020 by ousting President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. The coup followed large anti-government protests over deteriorating security, contested legislative elections, and allegations of corruption. Under pressure from Mali's West African neighbors, the junta agreed to cede power to a civilian-led interim government tasked with overseeing an 18-month transition to democratic elections in February 2022. But the coup leaders quickly clashed with the new interim president, the retired Colonel Ba Ndo, and engineered a second coup in May 2021. Colonel Assimi Goïta, who had served as interim vice president, was elevated to the presidency. Goïta's government made little progress towards organizing elections and announced late last year that it intended to delay them by up to 5 years. West African regional bloc ECOWAS responded earlier this month with harsh sanctions, including closing its members' borders with Mali. In Chad, the army took power in April 2021 after President Idriss Déby was killed while visiting Chadian troops fighting rebels in the north. Under Chadian law, the Speaker of Parliament should have become president, but a military council stepped in and dissolved parliament in the name of ensuring stability. Déby's son, General Mahamat Idriss Déby, was named interim president and tasked with overseeing an 18-month transition to elections. And in Guinea, Special Forces Commander Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya led a coup in September 2021 against President Alpha Condé, saying he acted because of poverty and endemic corruption in the coastal West African state. Condé had outraged his opponents the previous year by changing the constitution to circumvent term limits that would have prevented him from standing for a third term. He won a third term in the October 2020 vote. Doumbouya became interim president and promised a transition to democratic elections, but has not said when those will take place. In response to all these, ECOWAS and also international allies have imposed sanctions on junta members and their relatives. But that has seemed not to be a deterrent to coupists, especially in the light of Burkina Faso's situation. Analysts prefer the solution of good governance and political leadership as a better way of avoiding these kinds of military takeovers.
And our Confidence Makari, Security and Global Affairs Analyst, joins us now on the program. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. It's quite worrying, this trend we're seeing, especially in a region once known as the continent's coup belt. Are military takeovers back or coming back in fashion in Africa? With us, seem we've lost connection with Mr. Makari. We will try and reconnect. But in the meantime, Mali's military leaders have called on Denmark to immediately withdraw a contingent of troops deployed to the West African nation as part of an international counter-terrorism force. The junta, which took power in a coup in 2020, said the deployment of about 90 Danish soldiers had taken place without its consent. Denmark says it's in touch with the government in Bamako and is working intensely to clarify the situation. There's been widespread international concern about the reported deployment of mercenaries from Russia's Wagner Group in Mali. The government has denied their presence, saying Russian trainers were in the country to support the national army. And in East Africa, Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera has sacked his entire cabinet over corruption concerns. In a televised address to the nation, the president vowed to confront all forms of lawless conduct by public officials. He also said that a new cabinet would be announced in 2 days. 3 ministers are facing charges, including the Minister of Lands, who was arrested last month in a bribery case. A Labour minister has been accused of diverting COVID funds, and the Energy Minister of meddling with fuel deals. All have denied the allegations. Well, joining us for more on the situation in the country is Malawian journalist Florence Mawali. Thank you, Florence, for joining us on the program. It seems Mr. Chakwera, who was elected in 2020, promising to fight corruption, is stepping up to tackle the problem, isn't he?
Yes, indeed. And this has been very surprising for most Malawians. They did not expect what he did last night. Most people were expecting something else different, but thank God that this came out. So people are hoping that he will continue like he started now. It's also coming, the move that he did last night came after a lot of criticism from especially the public and some civil society organizations, rights groups, including the clergy, who told him that you need to step up, you need to take control of what is happening in the country. So after he did that, people are now satisfied and they're hoping that real measures will be taken, and these people that have been sacked and the ones that have been accused of being connected to these cases, that maybe they'll hopefully be go into court and the law will take its course.
But how is this latest move by the president being received by, especially citizens who are generally angry over high unemployment rate and the country's economic crisis?
People are hoping that more opportunities will now come up for other Malawians who who are patriotic for the country. And when the announcement came last night, people were overjoyed. Everybody took to social media to express their joy of what the president had done. Everyone seems to be satisfied with that. And people are very, very happy that the cabinet has been dissolved and the police are arresting those who are allegedly involved in these corrupt cases. So people are happy, and hopefully that they're hopeful that many opportunities will now come up with the cabinet now dissolved. It will create maybe hopefully a new opportunities for the younger generation to also be put into those cabinet positions.
So speak to us about the ministers accused of corruption. We know some have already been arrested. What's next for them?
The first minister that was arrested, he was arrested last year. This is Ken Gandodo, early last year in around, I think that was in April, Ken Gandodo. He was the Minister of Labor. And the case was that he was allegedly involved in misuse of public funds, which were meant for the fight for the COVID-19 pandemic. And these are the funds that he took for as to use during his overseas trip to South Africa. And he fortunately repaid the money. The other minister that was arrested was Newton Gambala, and his case was to do with fuel deals to supply to the National Oil Company of Malawi. And these deals were made in favor of a certain companies. So he was allegedly involved in that as well. And his case is currently also in court. And the recent arrest is of the former Minister of Lands, and this is Kezim Sukwa. I should also make mention that during his address last night, President Chakwera did make mention of this case involving Mr. Msukwa, and he made mention that in the new cabinet, he will not be included in it because of the case, so that it may allow him to go to court and maybe clear his name in the end because of the case. So he was arrested on also corruption charges that he is allegedly involved in. And the case is also in court currently.
All right, a lot to keep our eyes on. Malawian journalist Florence Mawali, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you for having me.
And still to come on the program. 2 people killed after tropical storm Anna hits Mozambique's central Zambezia province. More details in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Back to the growing trend of military takeovers in Africa. Here we have Mr. Confidence Makari, Security and Global Affairs Analyst with us now. Mr. Makari, thank you for your time on the program. It's quite worrying, this trend we're seeing, especially in a region once known as the continent's coup belt. Are military takeovers back or coming back in fashion in Africa?
Yeah, well, it has become sadly been a trend. Before we got talking, you mentioned the ability of continent, especially across the Sahel in the past 1 year. And if there's anything they have in common is that they are French-speaking with a history of disaffection against the democratic ruling class. And so it almost looks like as though we're back to the 1990s and the 1980s, which an era which was characterized by unconstitutional across the continent.
Well, for Burkina Faso, it's interesting, though. Many analysts have said this was largely predictable, as the president has had it coming for a while, especially with the worsening security situation in the country. What are your thoughts?
In Burkina Faso, we should understand that the coup there follows the pattern of other coups. A coup making in Africa follows a particular pattern: disaffection with the ruling class, poverty, unemployment, terrible economic growth, and a lot of other things. But in 2013, the manner in which the long-time ruler Blaise Compaoré was removed was also through the military and non-constitutional means. And the coup leader then was Colonel Isaac Zida. And so yes, one could say that that particular aspect was enough to establish a pattern that it was only a matter of time if it happened again. And given the dire situation in the country's north, especially where Islamic State affiliated militants are causing all sorts of problems, engaging in mass killings and territorial acquisitions. Yes, there is credence to the fact that the people have always said that it was only going to be a matter of time. And Burkina Faso lies on a dangerous path. It is in a very dangerous company where its neighbor, a few miles away, Mali, has experienced 2 coups in the last 2 years. And then to the east, you have Niger, you have several others that are also in similar concerns, in similar straits, security concerns and all. And so, yes, on that point, you could say yes.
Well, what's required to restore stability in cases like this? Because we know it's certainly not military takeovers. As shown time and time again, this just creates a continuous power struggle.
Yeah, you could say that the military is taking power for themselves, but you should also understand the reaction of the people. In all of the coups that have happened in the past 2 years or so, they were met with mass public approval. I mean, you were witness to the one that happened in Mali the other day, where the ruling junta led by the current leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, mobilized a large number of people, and they whipped up anti-French sentiment. So it follows a pattern of a huge public approval for that, and then it goes on to show that yes, while the military itself might actually have the ulterior motive of taking power for themselves, for the population who would rather have a non-constitutional change of government, they would have it no other way. I mean, they are more comfortable with the military in charge than they having the democratically elected government. And so, yes, the military could be there for their own selfish purposes, but I think the people who have the power, the legitimacy where they decide on, are actually comfortable with this whole arrangement.
Well, for regional powers like the AU and ECOWAS, do you think they are doing enough to deter the trend?
No, absolutely not. I've said this and I've written about this in several fora. I think to some extent the tide and the wave of coup d'etats have sort of overwhelmed these regional organizations, and they have been caught flat-footed, for lack of a better word. And I would say that they have this coming, but they were badly prepared for it because of the manner in which they've responded to unconstitutional changes of government. It doesn't go away from the statutory message of condemnation, asking that the coup plotters release the president in good health without harming him, and then commit to a peaceful change of peaceful transition into a democracy, holding elections and everything. So the coup plotters understand this and grown comfortable with telling the African Union and ECOWAS whatever they want to hear. But yes, the blame largely resides with these regional organizations. And I will tell you this, but for the mere fact that the African Union and ECOWAS hasn't done enough to prevent coup, these organizations lack the moral grounds to condemn them when they happen. There are so many signs that point to the fact that there is a disaffection with the ruling elite of many of these countries where the coup take place. There are unconstitutional moves, there are moves by the president or whatever head of state in charge to either illegally extend their stay in office. We saw it in Ivory Coast. We saw it in Mali, where President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, when he was alive and in office, was trying to change the constitutional court to his own advantage. We're seeing different attributes of illiberal democracies being perpetrated by many of the sitting African governments, with not a single condemnation from either the African Union or the Economic Community of West African states. So it's almost as though they always wait until when these things are boiled over and then they come out to condemn it. That is reactionary. The African Union and the ECOWAS has to take a proactive step, in the sense that when they spot these trends that they know are going to boil over into a military involvement, they have to call it out, sanction erring members, and make sure that these presidents, which are part of the ECOWAS forum, do not err from the democratic principle or do not alter the constitution to favor them.
All right, then, security and global affairs analyst Confidence Makari, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on now, according to the United Nations, at least 32 people, including children, have been killed during armed raids in South Sudan's eastern Jonglei state. The attacks on Dongrut and Machine villages on Sunday sent civilians from the Dinka Boer community fleeing as armed youths from the Mawali ethnic group opened fire and torched property. The UN mission in South Sudan adds that among the dead were 3 children who drowned in a river while trying to escape. At least 26 people were injured and others remain unaccounted for 2 days after the bloodshed in the Baidit locality. And Cameroon's President Paul Biya has ordered an investigation into the crush that killed 8 people outside a stadium in the capital before an Africa Cup of Nations football match. The crush happened when supporters tried to force their way into the Olembe Stadium before a match between Cameroon and Comoros. More than 30 people were also injured in the incident.
At least 8 fans died and 38 people were injured in the stampede at the Yaoundé Olembe Stadium in Cameroon on Monday, before the host nation's round of 16 game in the Africa Cup of Nations against Comoros Islands. Images shared on social media showed screaming fans being crushed at an entrance gate. The injured were brought to a district hospital near the stadium where distressed family members were looking for their relatives.
All my family went to the stadium. Afterwards, I get a call to come to the hospital. When I arrive, I find my big sister screaming and my little brother is lying down here.
A pregnant woman is one of those who died. There's also a child We can't find the mother, but the child is here.
President Paul Biya has ordered an investigation to shed light on the tragic incident. The Confederation of African Football, which organizes the tournament, has also launched its own investigation. Following a low turnout in their first-round games at brand-new stadia built for the continent's premier men's soccer tournament, Cameroon authorities have thrown open stadium gates, organized mass transport, and given out free tickets to lure fans. The country, which is hosting Africa's greatest sporting event for the first time in half a century, has been beset by organizational problems in its staging of the finals, having originally been supposed to first host in 2019, only for late preparations to cause a delay.
2 people have died and 49 others injured after a storm hit Mozambique's central Zambezia province. The tropical storm Anna has been pounding northern and central parts of the country with heavy rains, strong winds and thunderstorms. The National Disaster Management Agency said after an emergency meeting that the affected people were victims of lightning strikes, collapsing walls and falling trees. The tropical storm has left a trail of destruction. It has uprooted trees and damaged electricity lines, leaving entire districts in the dark. It has also damaged roads and bridges and disrupted phone communications. The national airline has cancelled domestic flights to affected regions, citing the heavy rains and strong winds. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shoboale.